Our next part of the day, we will have a panel discussion about skills and migration. So if you can join me in welcoming our panel to the stage. We've got Jane Johnston from Study Adelaide, Mark Glasbrook from Migration Solutions, Renee Hindmarsh, the SA Skills Commissioner, David Wheaton from RDA Limestone Coast, and also please welcome Zach McCrindle from RDA Barossa to the stage.
Thank you so much, and sorry, Mark. I know I don't want to wrap you up trying to be polite about it, but I know everyone here wants to have some networking time as well, so we don't want to run too late at the end of the day. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your time today. I think to get us started, actually I should also mention the poll. Don't forget on the app, the Events Air app, if you click on there and you go into the first session, we do have a poll question for this panel. I know the poll earlier in the day was very successful. 99% of you think Study Adelaide should continue the tours, so will that be continuing? So we do have a poll question there as well related to this panel, so head on in, and you can also suggest some questions for the panel if you do want to head in there and do that. I think let's start with a question for all of you. Can I ask all of you to briefly tell us what you think needs to change right now to try and fix the skills shortage? Let's start at the end. We'll start with you, Zach. Big question, and I'm going to keep you tight for time as well, so just an extra challenge there.
Okay, so I guess my approach will just be looking at it from a migration perspective and acknowledging that Mark is probably the expert up on this panel compared to myself. I think that we could do some improvements in regional definition and requirements that relate to those at a state and federal level. So currently regional in the federal setting includes everywhere except Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. So that includes Adelaide and Perth in the regional context, and I think there could be some extra layers in there whilst I don't necessarily want to overcomplicate the migration program. I think that's something that could be improved. And also it means that real regional centres like where we are today have no incentive necessarily for migrants to consider living and working compared to Perth or Adelaide or the Gold Coast necessarily. In the South Australian government context, I think this the state-sponsored skilled visas, the outer regional definition includes areas such as Adelaide Hills, excludes these areas, Adelaide Hills, Fleurieu, Barossa and Murray Lands as well. So where we are right now is not considered outer regional. And I think there are implications from a migration context. So to add more layers of regional could be an interesting conversation, and the requirements to go along with that, including the capacity for state government to nominate at the second level to ensure that people are where they, or stay where they say they're going to go, would be an improvement, I think. So I'd like to see that discussed a little bit further, perhaps.
David, what about for you?
Free TAFE, free childcare. We're blowing the budget, I know, but perhaps the planning at a regional level and giving regions some ownership over these issues. So regional workforce plans, bringing industry together with training providers, with government and others to look at where are the shortages, which are the critical shortages that are holding our region back, how are we going to deliver training into the occupations that are required in those industries in the short and medium term. So we have failed to plan, and we've failed.
Fail to plan, plan to fail. Is that the adage? Mark, to continue on from what you were saying earlier, you mentioned the new sponsored migration program. That needs to be done at a federal level, I assume?
Look, it does, but I guess when it comes to migration, we can't leave it to chance. It's been, the way the migration program operates now is on the back of the way that the state and federal governments have designed the programs. Yes, it's done at a federal level, but we need the state government to advocate for the reform that the business and industry in our regions need. Business and industry and the RDA and the LGA and individual companies have got a massive role to play in immigration, beneficial migration reform. So, yeah, I agree. It's important for the regions to look at what they need and then design a migration program around that. And then if there was an international education stream of that as well, you could attract international students to our region. So they would also benefit the community by living here and increase consumption expenditure, and most importantly, they help fill jobs that are vacant while they're studying.
Renee, if it was an ideal world, what would need to change?
I think it's, I guess, a case of how do we grow the pie? And the Minister alluded to it when she made her opening remarks, that we're in the best job market that there's been for 70 years, but that comes with challenges because we're almost at full employment. And so the challenge for us is how do we look at growing the pie? How do we support people who might have disabilities or come from those vulnerable cohorts that aren't necessarily as entrenched in the labour market as others? How do we facilitate training in a just-in-time manner rather than full qualifications? And also, how do we look at bringing new people into the workforce that haven't potentially considered careers in those areas of critical skills shortages? And so I think, we have 7 industry skills councils that sit under the Skills Commission, and the one thing that they all say to me is that we need people, and if only the perception of our sector was better. And so rather than having 7 different campaigns, I'm not advocating for that today, but it's really about how to speak to people differently about the career and what it might mean for them and how it fits with their natural strengths as humans and how we build that pipeline here in SA.
I guess that flows into your role, Jane, the education and training of people.
Yeah, so I think in terms of something that I think could be a fix at the moment is raising awareness of the 485 visa. So international students graduate and they can be employed just like a local, and that's happening now. No reforms needed. That's been in place for years. So an international student who does a master's degree here, potentially has experience back home and has qualifications to match, can currently work for 4 years as a local, any job, anywhere in South Australia right now. So I think it's just advocating or continuing to have awareness of that visa and that opportunity that's right there in front of every employer at the moment as they're looking to where they can find further skills. Potentially an option is to consider an international student as part of that wider skill mix.
And if they come out to our regions, let's fast track them to permanent residency. We've got fantastic university facilities out in our regions. Let's make the most of them.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing that we should talk about is people who are working and training on jobs, so apprentices and trainees, and what a great opportunity that might be for someone to learn new skills, but also to be working whilst they do it.
I would also like to remind you that you can put your questions to the panel as well in the app. I've just checked the poll. So the poll was, does South Australia need unique migration criteria compared to the rest of Australia? I'm about to vote. And to try and get a result. I think we'll get a result after the panel. So I'm interested to hear more about the skills-based support for employers in the region. David, do you think there is enough support of that in regions?
In the Limestone Coast, and I know the figures are similar across the state, we've got 7,500 businesses. 85% of those employ 0 to 4 employees. They're very small mum and dad operations. And anyone who knows me knows me. I've been talking about this for years now, but it's critical that they can tap into and find the resource and support that they need when they need it. And that's often when they're in the middle of doing BAS statements over the kitchen table at 11 o'clock at night. So making sure that they can access those services is just critical. And South Australia being the way it is, without large regional centres, means that all of that support is generally concentrated in Adelaide. And it's very hard for our small businesses, our small employers to access that, to make sense of what is, I think in Mark's words, if you're going to design a migration, the worst migration system in the world, you'd do what they do in Australia.
Great.
So, giving our employees the access to these things when it's so complicated and difficult for them to navigate.
Is there any, not trying to push you for free advice here, Mark, but if there are business owners here who do need support, are there places they can go, websites they can go that are accurate and helpful, or advice that
people can access?
Sure. My favourite website's the Immigration Department website, the federal site. If you look in the disclaimer, it says the Australian government takes no responsibility for the completeness or accuracy of any of the information contained on this website. So yes, there is, but it's incredibly challenging. The whole migration program's too challenging. It needs to be simplified. Look, training is really important, as I've mentioned, and as everyone knows. But if someone's got a vacancy today and they need to fill it, if it's a workshop that needs a diesel fitter or a diesel mechanic, they can't wait for 5 years, or they can't wait for 2026, is it, when the new skilling centres are going to be open, and then another 3 years for them to be trained up. There needs to be a solution for business and industry that have got job vacancies now. And really, there should never be any job vacancies. The migration system and the training system should work together to ensure that there's enough skills across the labour force to address current and future workforce needs. And we're lacking in both areas, I think, at the moment.
Zach, I could see you sort of.
Yeah, I
getting
just
the mic up.
thought it was worth noting that it's an option to reach out to your RDA to be able to get some support we don't necessarily have all the migration expertise in the RDAs, but we do have the connections across the RDA network to be able to help, one. Two, the state government has introduced industry outreach officers who are happy to work directly, speak directly to business. And the federal government has reinstated the same role. So these roles perhaps weren't there for a little bit, but they have been reinstated at both the federal and state level. Happy to speak directly to business to help them understand what it is. And then there's the service professionals like Mark. So there's migration agents and the lawyers. So there's two lots or two groups that are both qualified with respect to migration that you can get support and advice from.
Renee?
I think I would just add to that obviously there are a lot of government programs and sometimes they can be a little bit challenging, so do speak to your RDA reps, but there is definitely a willingness to support employers. And from the Skills Commission perspective, if you are employing apprentices or trainees and you have any questions, or even if you hit any hurdles along the way and you need some additional support, there are free services available to you. So just hop on our website or give us a call. There's a free 1-800 number. We've got staff who are available during business hours, but also obviously you can send us an email and someone will respond if you're doing your BAS statement late at night and you hit a hurdle. But I think it's really important. There are a lot of government representatives here today. I won't start naming individual programs because I'll miss some, but I'm sure as you're meeting people, to use Chris's example about your one action, my one action would be find them and find out what they do and how they can help you.
Great. Thank you all. Really appreciate your time today. Jane, Renee, Mark, David and Zach. Thank you so much.